Yes, job people, this is Michael Shemai representing. I will say, Hail the Lion voice, saying it is time for the lions and the lionesses to tell their own story. King David killed Goliath with a stone, we original dread.
The fittest of the fittest shall survive. My people, open your eyes. Wake up. Blessed love, this is Queen Omega representing for all lions and lionesses. With the lion's voice, we come to tell our story. Ras Tafari, live it. Hey, the lion's voice, Ras Tafari.
Yeah, man. Greetings, Ras Tafari, Haile Emperor Haile Selassie I, the first, the perfect balance Empress Menin. This is first man from Ras Tafari Indigenous Village, recognizing, accepting, promoting lion voice. Yes, the voice of Rastafari, speaking about Rastafari, educating Rastafari, preserving, protecting Rastafari. Give thanks.
Aye, Rastafari, mighty.
Amina, the time has come for the lioness to tell our own story. No surrender, no retreat, we are Jaja soldier. Rougher than the streets, tougher than a boulder. Bigging up Lamb's voice. Now put it, I jolly for say that.
Yeah, David Dread of Steel Pulse, and I'm saying hail to the lion voice, because it's time that the lion have its voice, have its own story. Says I'm stepping out here, hear me now. Oh, yeah, the lion's voice. Raw.
Lion voice. Well, lion voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion voice. Well, front to us a son was born and a child was given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders. And his name shall be called the Wonderful Counselor, Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Them called him H.I.M when he was born, rain fall from sky. Them called him H.I.M when he was grown, in airplanes he fly. They call him H.I.M, the lion break the chain, weep not, don't cry. Them call him H.I.M, read your Revelation chapter 5 verse 5. Then, born near the city of Harar, the inspiration for Bob Marley's guitar. People crowd him like some big superstar. It no matter if England or Cote d'Ivoire, no matter if you're brown or black like Qatar. Haile Selassie say fi end all tribal war. A time fi gather Mount Zion, fi drive solar car from the car straight to Zanzibar. Who we are, the sons of Mr. Farai, when he was born.
The year is 1892, and the land of Ethiopia has been experiencing 4 years of terrible famine and drought. They call it the Coup, or the evil days. At least 1/3 of the human population and 90% of the cattle have died. The hyenas have feasted on so many carcasses that they have become overweight and barely able to move. Just when the people could take no more of the evil days, a woman named Wasiro Yeshimabet is giving birth in a place called Erjersa Gora. This is her 9th attempt to bring forth new life. Her previous 8 attempts only resulted in death. Will this child live? Thankfully, a healthy baby boy is born. His first cries are drowned by thunder and lightning flashes across the night sky. The heavens open up and torrential rain starts to fall. Ethiopia's drought is over, and the baby boy is given the name Tafari, meaning one to be feared or respected. Tafari's father, Ras Makonnen, is a very important man in 1892 Ethiopia. Although he is overjoyed at the birth of his newborn son, he cannot spend much time with him. Ras Makonnen is the governor of Harar and must get back to the famous walled city to deal with its affairs. Furthermore, he is the foreign minister of Ethiopia, and having traveled to different places in Europe, he is very aware of the material and military advances they have made and the looming threats they pose to his country. Ras Makonnen knows that the majority of Ethiopians have no idea what is coming, and that he has to work that much harder to secure the realm. H. Tafari would grow up to become the legendary Emperor Haile Selassie I. To understand his journey, we must first understand the Ethiopia that he was inheriting and what it was like when he was born in 1892. Get your copy of Kwesi Bansu's book, Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1, The Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings, and increase your knowledge about the history, politics, and culture of Ethiopia in 1892, and how it connects to the rest of African and world history at the time. Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1 is available for purchase at www.bookmanexpress.pub. Please visit for more information.
Break the chain, weep not, don't cry. Greetings in that divine name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I. Glory and honor in the name of his chosen queen, Empress Waziri Menen. My name is Kwesi Bansu, aka the Charles March Kwesi, aka Ras Kwesi, aka the Reading Ras, aka the Pan African Happy Man. I'm a creative industry attorney. I'm an author. I'm an artist. I'm an actionist. And right now, I am the host of Lion Talk Live. Welcome to the Lion Voice Network and welcome to Lion Talk Live, where the lions are telling our own story. This is one of those episodes, family. I am very excited. We're going to be using a different format. We have some pictures, some documents. We're going to go deep into some history. So, you know, as a historian who has written a book on Ethiopian history, this one is very exciting for I. And it's something that we don't talk about much within Ras Tafari, which are the final days of Kadamawi Haile Selassie I in front of the world stage. The disappearance, and we're going to go deep into, you know, how we feel, what the facts are, what is the folklore, what is the oral tradition, what are the, you know, we're going to get to all of these topics tonight. So forward this to the family. We're going to be taking questions in the comments as well. I brought a brethren I have the utmost I spec for in terms of his knowledge of protocol Ethiopian history, particularly from a militarized point of view. So we're going to touch down deep into that. But first, if this is your first time on the platform, I have to just say welcome. We are growing so rapidly, over 700 subscribers in the last 28 days. So I have to big up all of the new subscribers. We've been doing this coming on our 3rd year anniversary, and it's good to see that the thing is starting to soak in. I'm starting to get the comments. Right now, Kenya has established itself as our largest demographic, but I'm not seeing any Kenyans in the comment section. So I'm asking the Kenya family, drop a comment, let me know it's real. You know what I mean? Let me know it's real, Kenya family. Nairobi, massive, please. I see the analytics Kenya has jumped past Jamaica as the #1 region. I want to feel some Kenya love. So put something in the comments if you're watching from Nairobi, all of the Nairobi family. I know you probably see it in the morning. It's way up in other hours now. But drop a comment. Please let me know the item are real. Big up the Lion Pride on Patreon. And if you're new here, how you become part of the Lion Pride, all you have to do is subscribe. So we have 700 people who have joined the Lion Pride in the last 28 days. If you want authentic Rastafari content, Rastafari high-level reasoning, then please subscribe to the platform. We are taking this in a direction that you've never seen before. The Lion Pride on Patreon are the family that actually invests in the platform. They monthly make sure that we're good. The bills them are paid because everything have cost. You see, we have the branding, all of that. The Lion Pride on Patreon. So this is a collective work, and I champion Rastafari independent, non-aligned media. And the only way we stay independent is crowdfunding. The audience, direct to consumer. That's for all creatives. The only way for creatives in this new era to stay completely independent is direct to your consumer. I do creative workshops. I've been working with several Rastafari creatives. We are going to be rising a revolution. Big up the Association of Rastafari Creatives, trade association that I was blessed to be able to be the convener for this entity, which has now spanning many continents, and ones are rising up. We are going to make a change, and I really give thanks. And it's because we hold fast to the tradition of this Ethiopian King of Kings that we're going to talk about tonight. So join the Patreon. Before I get into introduce the guests, say me have a big up Rasledge. I have the tumbler. I'll be sipping my water tonight out of a Rastafari own business. We're about circulating the Rastafari dollar. So if you see Ramia King Design, go support him, order your mug and thing. Big up Wally King's CMAS Life, Ras Wolde, greatest CMAS drink. We're getting ready to launch that forward on the road. So stay tuned. I'll be sipping on my CMAS shortly. To get all the essential minerals. We don't eat flesh. We need the B12. We need the this, the that. CMAS is where we get enough of them things, the spirulina, good health that our Rastafari represent. So, again, big up everyone who has come. I'm humbled by the progress, and I know it's word of mouth. I know the core Rastafari family has been rallying for the Lion Voice Network. I'm hearing, and I'm not going to disappoint the item and the item trust and the item faith. So the investment that the item make, again, we want to have Rastafari animated films, Rastafari blockbuster film, Rastafari cartoon, Rastafari documentary. All of these things we want to be able to produce, because if we don't tell our own story, then our tradition, our culture will fade away in this digital age. We have to be the authors of our own destiny, and I rising to do that. So welcome, Perfect Love. All right, that out of the way, we are going into the time machine tonight, family. We're going forward to the rise, the creeping revolution, the Dergs. You know what I mean? They rise up against Kadamawi Haile Selassie I, the first, who was so foolish. We are going to discuss it tonight. My guest is someone tonight that I have known over 20 years. I met this brethren while I was a student at Howard University. Brethren is a photo journalist. We go forward, Bingy House days, Washington, D.C., the brethren based out of New York City. Originally from Guyana, and Josai. We are Ethiopian, born in Guyana, domicile in New York City. But it's a brethren that, as a young Ras, I learned a lot about, the military protocols. We used to train 5 in the morning when him come check I, we are trained, we are do yoga, we are do push-ups, all kind of thing. Yeah, man. So we go way forward. So it was only the right thing that we bring him forward, because these are the topics that we reason about behind the scenes. So I wanted to bring it to the family, and I want this to be interactive. And we're gonna ask the question: does Jah live physically? I'm gonna bring in my own perspective. I want to hear what the item feel in the comments. Do the item feel that Haile Selassie is physically alive, 132, walking up around in a monastery? You know, what do we feel? We're gonna talk about it tonight, the mystical, but we're gonna keep it factual, and that are the thing when we love. So help I to welcome family, I brethren, Makonnen, welcome.
Yes, greetings. Tonight still. Salam nachu, dena nachu. Mo ambasa za imnega de Yehuda, Kadamawi, Haile Selassie, Negus Nagas, za Ethiopia. Fraternal salutations. This is a great honor and a privilege. Sincerely appreciate it. Also, I'd like to give thanks to Haile Culture, who is my technical support here. Without the combination of the two of us, this won't be possible.
Just let Haile Culture know him time for interview or come up too. So he need to ready up himself too, because we've been watching his work in Ethiopia. The music, we need a drop from Haile Culture. Only for people. I don't even start bring the network on this platform. I just want the item know the thing is not normal. All right. We're not going to do our regular format tonight. We're not going to go into the biography of the guests and come up. We're going to jump straight into the fullness. But before we do that, I wanted to just edify the brethren works as a photojournalist. If we can see the first slide today, I'm going to make the Lion Pride money work for it today. You're going to see the platform. We upgrade on StreamYard. So we're going to use some of the functionality. Big up yourself, Lion Pride on Patreon. So this calendar is one of the brethren works. He was one of the premier photojournalists for a lot of the big reggae shows in New York City. Can the idols give us a little bit of fullness on what we're looking at here, King?
Okay, that actually is like a thesis. There's like the whole of the 90s, most of the artists that were prominent in the 90s, I went to the shows and I took the pictures. But I wanted to show the focus was on the emperor and not on like a personality cult, like, you know. So that's why you see the emperor is the dominant figure, and every person in there is like giving praise through the word song, which is the songs or the music that they produce. And there's a lot of noted artists there too. But I took all those pictures going to various shows from like 92 to 2000.
Just for those who can't see so well, give us some of the artists that are featured.
Okay, like for instance, you got Born in Spear, you got Luciano, you got Garnic Silk, you got Culture, Capleton, Sizzler, Culture, Steel Pulse, Mighty Diamonds, a host of them. But they're so small that I can't really see them now. But it's a lot of artists there. Even Bonnie Whaler. I took that picture at Madison Square Garden.
I just wanted the eye to say that so that we can establish that the eye did this photojournalism on the highest level when it come on to I singers and players of instruments. And then this work here is also, we're going to talk about it. This is part of the legacy of Kadamawi Haile Selassie, that he has sprung forth so many legendary artists, you know what I mean, that have come to sing his praises to the ends of the earth. So we're going to talk about it because we're going to look at, because remember the Derg, the Western powers, Russia, all of these powers try to suppress the memory and the historical legacy of His Imperial Majesty, slander the king. And look, I mean, this work here is just a testament to how futile it was because so many rose up, to sing his praises. So that is so beautiful, my brother. And I just want, you can take off slide 1. Big up the Lion Voice Network production team. I want to also have the eye talk about just the eye experience generally with Ethiopia, because I want to establish you're not one of the races that stay in the West and you're talking about Ethiopia with all of this verve and you don't have no experience. This is a brethren from, I know him 20 years ago. This brethren was going back and forth to Ethiopia. I should have wear the shirt. Him have a shirt, Ethiopia, that, if I even thought of it before now. But talk about your Ethiopia experience just briefly. I want to establish the groundwork before we jump in the reason.
Okay, well, after I reached the apex of photography and reggae, the next part of the journey was Ethiopia. So I started going to Ethiopia around like probably 99. And then I consecutively go every year. Eventually, I got married over there to an Ethiopian, but that didn't work out. So, but I gained a lot of experience over there in terms of the culture of the people, and I was accumulating a lot of information about the emperor too. So, I met a lot of like older, what they call gashi, older people who had oral experiences, so that enhanced me a lot.
Yes.
In terms of the vision what the emperor had. Because when you go on the ground, then you understand like the issues he had faced in administration.
Yes.
And how he surmount them. So
and we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to go deep into some of what were the grievances of the students, of the soldiers. We're going to touch all of that tonight.
But Ethiopia is the beacon of freedom for the diaspora in general. And I think that we need to have more institutions doing research, so that they can have continuity, because most of the information is come through music.
Yes.
So we need like academic research, scholarly, so that
that's one of the things that we want to do with the Lion Pride on Patreon. We want to make documentaries. We want to go be able to hire researchers, really do high produced documentaries on Ethiopian history, African history, because we have to tell our own story. We can't wait for PBS.
Yes.
And then
that's our patrimony.
Yeah, we
defend the patrimony.
Get it wrong.
It's a very rich heritage, so we must, acquire the ability to sustain it, through symbolism, and even your character. Being Ethiopian is a character,
Yes.
So, because remember now, you're emulating the head of state, and he's the emperor. So, being Ethiopian, as the head of state, your actions reflect him.
Yes.
It's just like a police in uniform. He can't urine on the street because he's disgracing the institution. So like Ras Tafari in general, or that's our national actions, is reflect on the emperor.
Every Rastafari brethren and sister supposed to reflect the emperor and the empress at all times. We are the continuation of the dynasty, global. All right. Can we bring up the first or the second slide? We're gonna look at some pictures, family, and I'm gonna ask Makonnen to describe what we're looking at, and then we're gonna use that to frame the reasoning. So we're gonna do it a little bit different. Again, big up Lion Pride on Patreon. We're gonna use some of the Patreon money. You can see the updates in the platform. We're gonna be doing more of this type of presentation. But talk to us. What are we looking at here with this
Okay. This is what we want to discuss. This is September the 12th, when the officers came to the palace, okay, to depose the emperor, as they, you know. So in this photo, we see the emperor sitting at his desk, and in front of them, those are soldiers from different units who established a provisional military administrative committee, commonly known as the Derg. So at this, they came to the palace, and they came and read him a proclamation. But before all of this, I want to turn to two events that led up to this situation. There's a next picture from a next angle where from a different perspective. I don't know if you have it there.
Bring up the next slide.
Okay, so that's two perspectives of what transpired on September the 12th, when these mutinous soldiers and derelict intellectuals went to the palace to dethrone the emperor. But prior to this, there's two significant events that we got to talk about. One, the famine, and two, Asowasen, the crown prince, he had a stroke. That's in 1972. So after he had a stroke, there's a vacuum for succession. So he was taken to Switzerland for medical care. During that time, there's a picture, the third picture.
Yeah, give us the next slide, and we're gonna jump back and forth because I want to come forward to these pictures. But give us the next slide.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, this picture here is when the emperor visits the crown prince Asowasen with his eldest daughter Tenagnawar in Sweden. He had a stroke. So during this time when he had a stroke, also the famine was amplified by a journalist from England, John Dembley, with a BBC film. So
former MI6 agent. Go ahead.
Okay. So this set the stage for a creeping coup. But at this point, when the emperor visited his crown prince Asowasen, he had a draft constitution that was being studied. Could you pull it up?
Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm gonna, the constitution is very small, so I'm going to read off.
I can't read it, but
yeah,
this was.
Go ahead, talk about it.
Okay, it's not legible because it's very small, but probably you could read it. But
yes.
If you notice, at the top of it, label that's a draft constitution, and the different articles in the constitution, which we can come back to discuss. But one of the particular articles in the constitution was that the succession was no longer to male, but to a direct relative. So the foresight of the emperor was already, he had already tried to change the constitution for the future, because Asowasen was incapable because he had a stroke. So he was making provision for his eldest daughter Tenagna work to succeed. However,
let me just read this draft passage. This is from part 2 of the Constitution, and it's on from the section that says succession to the throne, and it says that the Ethiopian crown shall remain perpetually attached to the line of Haile Selassie I, descendant of King Haile Selassie, whose line descends without interruption from the dynasty of Menelik I. This shall not, however, affect the provision of Article 2. And then it says, Article 2 of this provision, the Ethiopian crown shall devolve upon the eldest child of the emperor without regard to sex. In the event that the emperor has no direct descendant, the crown will go to the oldest of his nearest relative. If such a relative is not living, the crown will go to his eldest direct descendant, and if there are none, to his eldest and nearest relative. Among those entitled to the crown shall be reckoned a son or a daughter unborn. Yes, membership in the royal family and the attendant status and duties and other particulars shall be defined by law. So this is revolutionary because it returned Ethiopia to the Sheba, you know, and that ancient fullness, you know what I mean, in terms of there was no distinction. But this same constitution also created a constitutional monarchy, which put the decisions of the nation completely in the hands of the parliament. You know, when you read
from the palace to the parliament.
Yes, from the palace to the parliament. So this was revolutionary, and this was what a lot of the elements were asking for. Continue, sorry.
I want you to read Article 1, the head of state, the crown, the emperor.
Okay. The emperor. It says the emperor, Article 7, the emperor is the head of state of Ethiopia and the symbol of the nation's unity and history. His rights and duties are defined in this constitution. Article 8 says, by virtue of his status as head of state, the person of the emperor is sacred and his dignity inviolable. No one shall have the right to bring suit against the emperor. The concerned officials shall be answerable for all national actions of the emperor. And then Article 9 states that the faith of the emperor shall be that of the monotheist Ethiopian Orthodox Church, established in the 4th century according to the doctrines of St. Mark. And then it says, Article 9 goes on to say that in religious services of all religions, prayer shall be offered for the Ethiopian nation and for the emperor. So it's a freedom of religion, but everyone have to send up praise. So this is the every knee shall bow, every tongue confess.
Exactly. But a part of the article is that the person of the emperor is sacred.
Yes.
That's very important because his majesty was coherently a divine right. He ruled by divine right through his DNA, Solomonic blood.
Yes. And Cushite, through Sheba, because he was a unification of the Cushite and the Israelite through Sheba, you know, because Sheba and the Ethiopians is bringing that Asian Cushite bloodline, and then the Solomonic dynasty is bringing that African Israelite bloodline, you know, and it's the connection of the two ancient bloodlines in one. So in terms of the African world, this is the apex of you know the throne of the monarchies, and he was recognized as such by the other African monarchies. You know, he was a true king of kings. I learned that when I went to the Ashanti Palace, you know what I mean, in Ghana, and I saw that the Lion of His Majesty bestowed the title of Lion of Judah on the Ashanti king at that time, who was Osei Tutu, and they still have the medal that His Majesty gave to their king, and they revere it, and they revere His Majesty in the Ashanti royal court. So, he was really a king of kings. But I want the eye to talk more about taking it from 72, because we want to paint a picture.
Okay, well, from in 1972,
Yeah.
these two factors, the drought, which was publicized and create bad press, it foment the students to start to take to the streets. That's in February, with a slogan of "Land to the Tiller," which is a Marxist-Leninist ideology. So they started to rebel in the streets of Addis Ababa. So this put the coup in motion. Apart from them, in Negele, the army mutinied.
Yes.
And arrested the commanders. So that mutiny started to spread to the 2nd Division and to different parts of the army. So eventually they arrested what we call the top tier of the military hierarchy. Those are officers above the rank of a major. They all arrested them. So
and they were protesting, the living conditions, the food
and water supply,
water,
raise the pay.
Yeah, raise of pay. So they were legitimate grievances, and I wanna, for those who are not familiar, I have to set the context for these uprisings. I like to say that His Majesty was a victim of its own success, meaning that as you modernize the country, as you lift more people out of poverty, out of abject poverty, because His Majesty is transforming a feudal system, which the people had no rights. They were peasants on the land working for the Rasses. The Rasses could do whatever they want. They could kill people. There was no
subjects of the state.
They were subjects, you know what I mean? So His Majesty, by introducing the first constitution in 1931, first thing he did after he assumed supreme power of the realm was to actually limit his own power and to rise the Ethiopian from a peasant to a citizen with rights, but he knew he couldn't fully make it by vote, because the people would still be manipulated by the nobles of the land. So he created a senate, which all of them, the royal houses could serve as senators. The lower house was selected by the king with his young cadre of trained ministers that he had sent out to get foreign education. So the vision, I want people to understand, because these are the things that the students don't realize when they're rising up. They don't know how far they're coming from. Education was free in Ethiopia, right through university. That's how much of the GDP was invested in education. This is unprecedented in most societies. I've talked to Ethiopian elders who tell I they didn't realize how good they had it. They had great food. His Majesty would come and just taste the food in the cafeteria at the school.
He was actually the Minister of Education.
He was the Minister of Education. So, but with that though, you can only modernize so fast. So for every school you build, that means more youths born, people flooding in from the countryside because they hear that the developments in the cities, you have to find housing for them. There's the rate of job. You want to attract foreign investors to start businesses. You're trying to get people not to hoard their money, start businesses, employ people. So think about the functions of running a modern state. This is what Yeshua never had. This is what the prophets of old never had. Enoch, the administration, caring for the mass of the people as the not only head of church, but the head of the military and the head of the civil administration. So he's a victim of his own success of the modernization, and with that, you're going to have shortages of certain basic fundamentals. There was also a lot of corruption, because remember that these independent kingdoms are not just loving His Majesty. It's because of His
They had
strength.
other issues too. Like they had the secessionist war going on with Eritrea. They also had a problem in Ogaden, in the desert in Ogaden. So His Majesty had at that point, was different fronts. Was different culminate into the revolution as they term it, but it's more treason than revolution. Because if we go on to the next document, we will see where what they read him at that desk that day.
If we can pull up the what slide is this? This is one moment here. If we can pull up slide 7. No, slide next one. Next one.
7.
There it is. All right. So let me read
this is a transcript, right? Of what transpired in like the W's of the photo, who, what, where, when, and why. So you can read it to the audience so that they could get an idea of what the soldiers was conversing with the emperor. He answered what his reply to them.
Okay,
because
so
the mutiny, the mutinous soldiers and the radical intellectuals, okay, eventually the momentum built up into them coming to the palace as this committee. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the proclamation. It says, Your Majesty, inasmuch as the committee of the national forces, the armed services, and the police are abundantly mindful of Your Majesty's well-being and health, and as there is a place which has been prepared for your health and well-being, we would humbly request that you should please proceed there. So this is when they're removing him from office. And then the response is, how is one to go? To the prepared place. There is a place we have specially prepared. You are pleased to go with us. And then His Majesty responds, in general, we have, of course, heard that you have said when we became King of Kings of Ethiopia, it was not only a mere formality, but it was to prepare what can be done for the people and the country in peacetime, and to prepare the means with which to ward off the enemy when he came. And we have no doubt that this is well known within our armed forces. Nevertheless, as long as the conditions of change which occur from time to time, having them elements of advantage for the country, and as it is impossible to change the country's interests for something else or in any other way, we have understood what you have read out in this sense, and now it must be thus. It is well to stop now. So His Majesty, continue. Go ahead.
Okay, so he held his dignity intact, and he showed them being the King of Kings is not for formality, but it's actually a government. And if they think that that they could use the word elements of advantage, so he was making way for them to introduce their way of administration as they see it fit.
Yes, I. And to add insult to injury, remember that these are children His Majesty would have known from they were in kindergarten, from they were in Pampers. He knows their parents, their grandparents, their great grandparents. He spent state treasury to train them to make sure that they live better than their foreparents. And this is the thanks that they're giving.
This is a clear act of treason.
Yes.
This is a clear act of treason. The soldiers that went to the palace, they're in a chain of command, and the commander-in-chief constitutionally is the emperor. So at that point, when they read in the statement, there's crime. They're committing a crime. There's act of treason. Could some generals go to the White House and seat the president? No, because he's constitutionally elected. So they're unethical. There's insubordination, and it's against military ethics. That's the commander-in-chief. So there was treason. It was an act of treason.
Give
clearly.
Thanks. If we have 25 angels watching right now. Any questions? Put them or comments. Put them in the chat. Also, let us know where you're watching from. We have Lion Pride all over creation. Let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from. This is one of those episodes that people are going to be talking about, that's going to be forwarded and shared, because we're going deep tonight, family. And we want this to be a conversation, conversation. We know that we have scholars also who are watching. So if you have information and you want to share information that you know, put it in the chat. We will bring it forward into the reasoning. Can we see the next slide?
The next slide is like the final conversation he had with them.
So I want to read this. This is a statement of His Majesty speaking to them. He said, "Today marks the end of my legacy and the beginning of the revolutionaries. However, if the revolutionaries fail to keep unity and the sovereignty of the country intact, their legacy will end and my legacy will be restored." So that is, the fullness.
That is very prophetic. Very prophetic. Very much prophetic. It's quite evident that the emperor's legacy is currently being restored. He's venerated all over the world.
All over. I was just saying to Makonnen before we went live, the Ethiopia Lion of Judah flag that's behind him, it flies on every continent. And not because someone held up a gun and told the people that they must fly this flag. The majesty now reigns in the hearts of man. We have two brethren who have given their life to fulfill the mission of the emperor here, reasoning, and we have hundreds more that are going to watch this. This is part of that never-ending legacy. This is the fulfillment of the prophecy that of the throne of David there would be no end. They tried to stop the physical throne, but they could not stop it rising in the hearts of the global diaspora, and that is the glory of Kadamawi Haile Selassie, and it's still expanding. The Ras Tafari is not shrinking; it's still expanding. As it catches fire on the continent and other parts of the global south. So it's really we're still living in the cycle. The other thing I wanted to touch on is the outside forces, because we shouldn't feel like the Derg was acting unassisted. We shouldn't feel like there was not outside forces that wanted to see the emperor fall. The
monarchy eliminated in general.
Yes, in 1973, we have the Yom Kippur War, where the Arab League invaded Israel and was defeated, and is Ethiopia, which had been a long-standing ally of Israel, broke off diplomatic ties in solidarity because they had been undertaken bombing on African soil. Egypt was, of course, a founding member of the Organization of African Unity. So with that came the famous oil embargo. The item who watch this channel know I always talk about the Straits of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf and the oil that flows out of there. All of the oil from the Persian Gulf flows through there. In 73, that was cut. America and many other nations were cut off from that oil. And Ethiopia, which was a very close ally of America, suffered because they took that stance. The Kwagnu base in Eritrea was shut down. Sorry, in Asmara, which was a major income source for the government at that time. And there were other things. This is why Ismail made a trip to America to see Nixon, because he was trying to shore up the support. He was being attacked on all fronts at this time because he refused.
1973 came to Nixon, yeah.
Yeah, 1973, and it was during this tumultuous time. I'm trying to set the stage so people understand all of the forces. It's like almost everything came against Kadamawi at the same time. Internal forces, external forces. The brethren that Makonnen talked about, Dembly, he was a former special forces officer with the MI6 in the UK. This piece that was done was obviously done to paint his Majesty in a bad light.
Undermine, yeah.
Yeah, it was also reported that the ministers, including, Afsa Wilson was at the time in charge of Wollo, were not communicating the information about the
to the emperor, yeah.
Yes, and all of this would have been coordinated in foreign embassies. We see the color revolutions that are so popular right now around the world. These are what happened to the emperor became a standard operating SOP to take down a government, where you rise up the student movement, the military, the this, the that. You play on the discontents. And the reason I bring up all of this is because of the spiritual aspect, which I want to touch on. His Majesty made a militant stance for peace. And this is the thing that we have to, some Rastafari want to pick up guns and go fight a war. And I tell them that His Majesty final commandment by his example to us as a movement was he stood down from the war, because war begets war. He speaks about it. You know what I mean? He took a militant stance because these little youth, them, picnic, we could have called them, talking to him. He still had loyal aspects of the military. He could have crushed the Derg. And part of the reason that, they say His Majesty was senile, or that his mental faculties, is because he was complying when the rebellion that Makonnen talked about and Nagale. His Majesty responded by raising the pay, trying to make things better when he was trying to respond to all of, and they took it for weakness. But it's because His Majesty was not trying to be an opposition. Again, the reform was moving at a pace. There was a lot of corruption from these independent races who had now become ministers of government. They all had their own agendas. They were only loyal to the extent that they knew that the emperor was too powerful to openly rise against him. So I just wanted to set that context, you know what I mean, so that I understand the odds that we're against. And no matter what I do as one individual walking within that Christ-like tradition, you know what I mean, you can't control how a next man move, you know what I mean? So these are the things that we have to understand as Rastafari. We can be that light, but that doesn't mean that ones will not rise against the eye and try to destroy the eye for no reason at all, more than that they don't feel that the eye should be there. So in terms of talk to us about Mengistu, and who.
Okay, well, let's go to the next photo, because after they spoke with him, remember they said they're going to take him somewhere. So we all know the infamous picture where they carted him off in a blue buggy.
Yes, bring up the Volkswagen there. famous picture.
Okay. So after they spoke with him inside, they brought him out into this Volkswagen and they took him to the 4th Division headquarters. And then later on, they took him to the Gibi because he used to. This is from the Jubilee Palace. So this picture is infamous and it's very strange because even the people that were that's supposed to be protecting him, the Imperial guards, they are with their hands behind their back. So this is insubordination, treason, you know. And
See.
as he drove away, the progressives, as they were labeled, was calling him labor. That means thief. So I'm just raising this awareness for let the public know that the very said people that he educated, meaning the intellectuals and the soldiers, you know, they don't show no gratitude.
And this is the, again, they weren't alive when Ethiopia was a feudal society, when it took a month to ride by horseback from Harar to Addis, and you had to leave before the rains, or you couldn't get through, and maybe half of your entourage died through malaria. They don't know that empire, the ancient. They came and forms had already started. They had a university to attend, which was unprecedented. They didn't have to pay. They were selected. They went to schools. They were educated with their peers. His Majesty, when he went to the palace school, there were no other schools outside of the Orthodox Church. Priests, the monasteries and the schools to train priests. And they don't know the struggle His Majesty had to go through to get the nobles to send their children to school, or to get the common Ethiopian to send their children to school. The opposition he got from the church. You know what I mean? They don't know that part. So this is what we have to set the context. A lot of time you'll hear this word tyrant bandied about, and the evidence doesn't support that. When we look at the reforms, when we look at the achievements of His Majesty, what tyrant educates his people and puts so much of the GDP into the education of his people?
Could I interject? He gave one of his policies for education, Genet Lul.
Yes.
He even gave, yes. This to show you the commitment. However, this was the last public photo of the emperor, because after this, he wasn't allowed to be visited, or he was taken to the Gibi, which is Menelek's palace, where until they announced that he had transitioned.
Wow.
But this photo would be the last public photo, and those utterances would be the last public utterances, because this was on September the 12th. And there's a reason why they go this day. Usually the emperors make proclamations. So had they not go this day, he would have proclaimed the new draft constitution. But then the successor to the throne, he was abroad with medical care.
Mm-hmm.
So that creates a problem. That's why in order to promulgate this one, he had to do it on September the 12th. But the soldiers preempt, and they went to the palace before, and the same day, September, which is Ethiopian New Year's Day.
Yes.
So this is the beginning of Ethiopia's present condition, from the wages of this crime.
And then there was also 1 year of house arrest after this,
Yes,
which
that house arrest took place up in at the Gibby. But before we go to the house
explain what the Gibby is to ones who may not be familiar. Explain what the Gibby is.
okay, there's the Jubilee Palace. This one was built for 1955 Silver Jubilee. The Gibby is Menelik Traditional Palace. That's if you go to Ethiopia, it's at the top of this one, at the top of the hill. So the Gibby would be the old palace. The other palace we turn over to the students that was built for his coronation in 6 days by for the Swedish. It accommodated some of the diplomats. So the word Gibby means palace. So the Gibby is where he used to work from, and he used to reside at the Jubilee Palace.
Okay.
In fact, this Jubilee Palace is built on Philowa. Philowa is a hot spring. So the natural hot water is piped through the palace.
Yes, that was one of the reasons Addis was chose as the capital by Empress Taitu, because of the hot springs.
Yeah.
But yes, this is a fascinating time in Ethiopian history. You saw the famous Volkswagen. They were trying to humble him. These were all propaganda. This was the propaganda campaign to smear the legacy of His Majesty, because remember, he's one of the most world-loved leaders. The other thing that we have to recognize, and I write about this in my book, is that Ethiopia had not really known any extended periods of peace as long as the reign of His Majesty. In the recorded history, Ethiopia was war after war, and so His Majesty was holding something together that had a proclivity to fight against each other. The situation in Ethiopia now is a return to how Ethiopia of old was, where kingdom would war against kingdom. I write in my book, the year of His Majesty's birth, Menelik was marching on Tigray to go and put down Ras Mengesha and Ras Alula. You know what I mean? And the only reason he didn't march into Tigray was because of the Kefu Khan and the drought. He wasn't sure that he could, maintain his supply lines, and Tigray had been decimated. It was suffering, and the army probably was in excess of 10,000-20,000 men that you have to feed every day. So this was the reality of Ethiopia. So because of the strength of Ethiopia, the Rasses agreed, and because of the Italian invasion also helped greatly for His Majesty to be able to input some of his reforms. But that doesn't mean the tension is removed, and this is what we have to understand. As early as the 50s and the 40s, you had uprisings in Gojam. You know what I mean? You had different branches of the Solomonic Kingdom, and as we transition into the modern era, they don't name themselves according to their bloodline. But remember that Ras Makonnen bloodline was seen as a lesser contender to the throne. You have people like Johannes, you have the Gundar bloodline, and other bloodlines that people feel are more stronger to the throne than even Ras Makonnen, who comes through a female ancestor of Haile Selassie. You know what I mean? You have people descending from Zeriakum, from different ancient parts of the bloodline. So it's very complex when we talk about Ethiopian politics. And what I find, and we can talk about this, is that they try to reduce it only to the secular. And Makonnen, you can speak to this. How important is spirituality to the Ethiopian realm?
Okay. Well, as you know, they inherit the Solomonic dynasty. So it's the duty to maintain that sovereign spirit. which, okay, you find that the emperor himself, okay, because of his bloodline, right?
Yes, I.
He's, he's divine and sacred. So he functions in that cognitive domain, which is spiritual. So spirituality is like, for instance, the majesty of him. When people see him, they bow. That's a form of spirituality. Yeah? So it was quite evident that he was divine, which trickled down into being spirituality, or we even practice it today. Yeah? But the next point I want to make too, during the removal of our August sovereign from the palace, they also arrested the imperial family. They arrested his grandson, Iskender Desta. They arrested Tenagna War, Princess Sierra Giza, the Duke of Harar's sons. They were incarcerated without charge for 14 years. They were released in 1991 when Mengistu fled. So the treasonable act of these soldiers, it create this mayhem where even the 60 officials that were arrested, they were executed too. You know about that situation.
Yes,
Well,
yes.
all this thing was going on at that time. We're gonna get to the protagonists, them who conduct all of this, but we just setting the stage for it. So apart from them removing the emperor from the palace, they also arrested his family, his relatives. So that was a big problem in that the Derg at that time started to take shape. Because remember now, it was junior officers. So they have to get a public face. So the first person that spoke on their behalf was Lieutenant General Aman Michael Andom. He was known as the Lion of Ogaden because he was successful in repelling the Somali incursion from Said Bar. So they had elected him to be the first chairman of the Derg. So when he was executed, if you bring up the pictures, you're gonna show the protagonists them.
Okay,
The
bring
rest
up
of
the next slide there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this picture now, those after the General Aman was executed, they replaced him with this general. This is Teferi Benti. So Teferi Benti became the new chairman and started acting as the head of state. This other person is Colonel Atnafu Abati. He was like a vice chairman of the Derg. And this picture here is of Mengistu. If you notice, they're still wearing imperial uniforms. So
Yes.
that's treason because the person who is supposed to bear true allegiance to the commander in chief, they insubordinate there. There's insubordination. But however, those are the people who abolished the monarchy, arrested the family, dismantled these imperial institutions, and then established themselves as a socialist republic. That's in March in 1975. Note that this bottom picture here, the uniforms change because they're reflecting the ideology. But in that picture got the Archbishop.
Yes,
So
that's where we
it's
are
very
going.
questionable. Huh?
To show you how deep the deception and the buyout and the sellout went, you know, that you have a Orthodox priest with a, you know, anti-faith movement, you know, the
Yes.
communist movement that didn't deal with no form of spirituality, you know.
But usually the Archbishop just pronounce a anthemia, like in the case in 1960 against the rebels. It didn't happen in this case. He's languishing with them, you know. So.
Bring up the next slide. So the
Say
one
again?
you can see it. No, just a better picture of that slide of the Archbishop with the dirks.
That's it there. That's the Derg. That's the Ferry Banti, Atnafu, Abeti, and Mengistu Haile Mariam. And the uniforms change for reflect socialist persuasion or ideology. But this was at when they was declaring Ethiopia to be a socialist republic. So it's like the Archbishop endorsing it. And they was using Marxist-Leninist ideology, which is atheist. Eh? So this was a serious time. At this time, they already had executed all the generals and imprisoned all the family. So eventually, as Mengistu eventually executed these two and became the chairman.
It was a very bloody revolution. Talk about the violence, because they started arresting people first, you know, and they were doing it in the name of the emperor. So they declared the emperor as the head of the Derg at first.
Exactly.
You know, so and the issue is that a lot of the people that they arrested were actually corrupt in real life, you know, because the system was not working as efficiently as it should have. But again, it was because, you know, although these people, you know, these are a lot of the top leaders were the old Rasses or the families of the old Rasses, because His Majesty couldn't just do away with bloodline just like that, or he would have plunged the country into civil war. This is what I was talking about in the Marcus Garvey episode, the gap between theory and practice. You know, in theory, you want to create an ideal society. You just do this, you just do that. Everything is sunny and rosy. In real life, people have power. These Rasses had private armies. They still have militias that were loyal to them. You can see it in Ethiopia now. You know, so His Majesty, although he would appear to have the supreme power, he had to balance the different interests against the interest to carry out his agenda. And this is why, when you know the truth, the achievements of His Majesty in the face of this, you know, this whirlpool or whirlwind of interest, and the fact that he was able to achieve so much to I, shows that divinity, that glory, more than any, you know, man coming from the sky or wearing a cape could show. Because anyone who has led any organization or tried to lead any people know how difficult it is. So to try to lead a country or an empire of multiple kingdoms, multiple languages, you know, centuries of war against each other, and to bring that into a cohesive state is truly remarkable. I don't know if you want to add anything to that before we go into some
No, I
of
want
the,
to go on to the next point. The after during this is March in 1975. So
yes,
the emperor is up at the GB. Okay. So by August now, they announced a sort on the radio in Addis Ababa at 7 a.m. They announced that an attendant that found the emperor unresponsive. Huh? So because we tracing his disappearance.
yes.
Well, they took him from the palace into the Volkswagen, then to the 4th Division headquarters, then they took him up to the Gibby. Good. While he's at the Gibby, they transformed the country into a socialist republic. Okay? And they incarcerate all the old officials and the imperial family. Uh, the next uh, thing that they did was they started to arrest all the students. There's how the term Red Terror come in.
Okay.
Because the students was White Terror and the Derg was Red Terror. So they start a campaign against the students to eliminate the intellectual because the students didn't agree with the Derg. The Dorgan had an ideology when they started. There's military officers. They had no. It's Castro and Soviet Union and them introduced them to a socialist plan and replace the Haile Selassie, the Trinity, with Marx, Lenin, with the statues of those three people. So, as you said, they had foreign influence. So it was budding
That's
because
why I could never
for
fully
you
get behind Castro.
so,
That's why I could never fully get behind Castro because we know the part they played with the Derg,
yeah.
Ethiopia, and they don't treat Rastas. Cuba today is one of the most unfriendly nation to Rastafari, brethren and sisters today.
But Cuba is mostly Catholic. What you expect? So
That is
it's
a
the poor people there.
So
So what you expect? And the Pope, them same people invade Ethiopia for try to destroy it. So they would obviously aid a second attempt.
yes, um, I'm looking here as the reading Ras. There's a book called The Emperor by Krasinski
Yeah.
that talks about some of that period of the 1 year in house arrest. You know, with the
Okay.
servant seeing his majesty standing on one leg, you know, doing meditation, you know, his prayer routine. So, you know, the book was intended as a smear campaign against His Majesty. A lot of negative things, but you can read between the lines and you still see the glory because how the servants talk about His Majesty and the things that they observe, you know. It's very fascinating, but if you have a chance for ones who want to read more about that time in the house arrest and what was happening during that 1 year. All right, take us from that 1 year.
So during the house arrest now, the emperor underwent a prostate surgery. And he was allowed to be visited by Princess Tenagnawar. And she had confirmed that his health was excellent. So for the doctor to announce that he was unresponsive, I don't want to use the word death, because death, you got carbs. And in this case, we don't got the carbs. So that's really, that's more disappearance. So when they announced that the emperor had expired, they never produced no carbs. And they tried to make his doctor, Asrat, conform it, and he refused. So they arrested him. there were also different different ideas of what transpired in folklore in Ethiopia. The emperor was allowed to pray during the time of house arrest. So he was allowed to be going to the church to pray. And the church got 3 levels, 3 sects, right? The outer, but in the middle is the Makdas. Only the emperor anointed and the archbishop could go there because the replica of the ark is in there. And usually it goes down into the recesses into the church. So there's a theory that he went into the St. Stephanos and he never came out. That's folklore again.
Yes.
So
yes. We've also heard in folklore that the Derg was searching for and arresting anybody who looked like His Majesty, any elders, and there was a whole paranoia type campaign.
exactly. That's why they tried to convince the doctor for make a pronouncement. He never did. Then in exile, you had Prince Darwin. He was in the USA at the time, and he clearly said that his grandfather is not physically dead because they never produce a body, but what he knows, his spirit lives. So up to the point, if someone dies, obviously you got a corpse. If you don't have a corpse, it becomes missing, or disappear. So I would presumably say that that's the case with the emperor.
This is where I say that there can be no successor appointed. I look at his disappearance as a seal on the David throne. As it was in the beginning, so shall it be. And the confirmation was that the revised constitution was changing into a constitutional monarchy where he was giving the power forward to the people. And then he now becomes part of the heart of the people, because you cannot appoint a successor without confirming the death of the emperor. So
Exactly.
it leaves that seal, you know what I mean, on the throne. And we have never seen anyone sit upon that throne since that time. There was
it's 49 years interregnum.
The island.
49 years.
However, we have seen the explosion of the Rastafari movement. So the throne now inhabited the hearts. And whose heart did it inhabit the most? It was these Africans who were exiled by the transatlantic slave trade, who were lost and scattered through the 4 corners. These are the ones that embrace this reality and have risen, to continue, so that the name of Kadamawi Haile Selassie refuses to be smushed under the earth or erased. It's such a powerful manifestation to I.
There's the last photo too that somebody was able to sneak out of Ethiopia of him being in detention. I don't know. You should have it.
Hold on a second here. I don't think
Can you bring it up on the screen?
I put it in the slideshow. Hold on, I'm going to send it to my producer.
Some text.
And I will get it up before the end of the show. I have it on my social media. If you go to my social media, you can see it. I sent it to my producer. So hopefully we can get it up. Give me a moment here. But I want to open up the comment section before we go any further and talk about, because I want to talk about my theories and philosophies, and I know we may have some others who have things. So I want to just acknowledge, big up Akebula and Empress Songs, all the St. Croix family checking in. Big up yourself, Jamar Spencer. Hopeful peace and blessings, everyone. Big up yourself. Greetings from Reunion Island. Let us so that's Lion Pride on Patreon. The Patreon on Lion Pride, I have to big them up, you know, and we're going into a global movement. So if you like what you see tonight, join us in the Patreon. King Kush, big up yourself. Modernization, King Kush, light a fire. Model car, praises to the Most High Jah. Rastafari, big up yourself. Regular Lion Pride checking in. King Kush says Shem and Ham united. That's in the Emperor. If Caesar educates your child, don't be surprised if they become Romans. So I think in terms of the foreign education and the Derg, Mengistu them coming forward. And we're going to talk about that. Greetings to all the Lion tribes watching from Detroit, Michigan. California, checking in. Model car, big up yourself. Salute Captain from New Orleans. Big up all of the New Orleans family, Lion Pride. Big up yourself. Greetings from Bahamas, Africa, and the West Indies. Seek knowledge with black love, fire, heretical truth. Bless up yourself. H.I.M Gonzalez from Trinidad. Big up yourself. I love all the Lion Pride are checking tonight. Azara Selassie, greeting from Philly, from Virgin Islands. Bless up yourself. Hail in the name of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I, God of all gods. Big up yourself, Lion Pride family. I have a question here. As Rastafari, where do we stand in politics? I want to answer that question, Makonnen.
Well, Rastafari, where they stand in politics. His Majesty answered the question a long time. He said, democracy and republic, what do they signify? They're all forms of government. I personally think the Ethiopian constitution is the best political document or for the diaspora in general. Because if you read the articles, it says Ethiopian subjects not only in Ethiopia, but in foreign territories. So there's the concept of empire, like England. England, through its language, because we speak in English, we become part of the empire. So my political views is that the emperor in his constitution, he left a body, which is the Crown Council, for handle political affairs. So I would think that there's the highest tier amongst people of this endeavor and persuasion in order to advance the political idea, which is the constitutional monarchy, which the draft constitution, the new one, which is restoring the monarchy. Which is political.
I say, you know, as Rastafari, in terms of where we domicile, that we typically are non-aligned as a movement. Individual Rastas are free to, you know, do what they see fit, but as a movement, you would not see Rastafari saying we're Democrats or we're Republican. We would have to be independent, and we would have to deal with things according to the best interests of the people, African people of African descent in particular, because that was His Majesty what he represented. So in terms of, you know, a Rastafari Republican, I don't see that as credible. A Rastafari Democrat, I don't see that as credible. You know what I mean? Because you would have to be standing for independence of Kadamawi Haile Selassie I, regardless, and then you interact with your state of domicile according to your conscience. But we must never openly identify and be used within partisan politics, because we're for the unity of the nation. You know what I mean? So that is crucial in terms of the overstanding. Now,
Let me interject again.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
My political thought is that a leopard can't change his skin, nor an Ethiopian can't change his spot. So if we could translate that into a unified front, with the emperor as the head, it would transform this world. Because Rastafari been doing it on their own for years. Over 40 years of experience I have trying to make a change. So it's quite evident that the influence of the emperor is the main factor, or should be a main psychological, when we speak about political or his views in general, is for us to keep continuing. So whatever form of politics he adopted, we gotta revise it, study it, and introduce it.
Definitely. Okay, we're gonna bring up that eye trait here, and then I'm gonna go into some theories now that I have as I want to go into the mystical side. So explain what the people are looking at here.
Okay, this is the last known photo that was taken of the emperor, and it was taken at the Gibi. You notice that he don't have a tie on, and usually he don't deport himself like that. But
yes,
at that time he incarcerated, and his hair is gray at the time, yes, and he holding his seal. So this was the last known photo before they make the announcement that he was unresponsive.
And you see his posture, doesn't look like a sick man.
He's still holding his dignity.
Yes.
Despite to
no,
the end.
Commenting, it doesn't look sickly, doesn't look bent over, doesn't look, still the same Kadamawi from that time till this time.
And this time he's 83 years old. He would be 83. Yeah?
83 years old or 83 years young. Right now I'm reading.
But Tenagna work was allowed to visit him. I said Tenagna work was allowed to visit him at that time.
Yes.
So she had, she know his health condition. But soon after, he disappeared.
One of the things that you learn about Ethiopia is that Ethiopia is one of the societies that employs the mystery schools. They might call them monasteries and different things, but you have a long ancient tradition. You have monasteries like Debre Libanos, other ancient monasteries that have been training ones from that time, until this time. So these monasteries contain ancient wisdom passed on from great antiquity. One such book is the Book of Enoch. And if you read the Book of Enoch, it's only preserved in its entirety by the Ethiopian church, meaning even the Coptic church doesn't contain the Book of Enoch. The only other place that the Book of Enoch was found was in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which was being held by the Essenes. This is how they realized that the Ethiopians had preserved this knowledge, because they thought the Book of Enoch was just apocryphal and the Ethiopians were just on some next thing. But when they saw the Essenes, who were a community that was outside of Israel or Jerusalem, and that identical manuscript of the Book of Enoch, but in fragments, the only place they found the entire thing is in the Ethiopian Bible. And when you read the Book of Enoch, you find out that the Book of Enoch is speaking about the angels, these beings that came from another realm to the earth, and made a covenant upon Mount Hermon to sleep with the women of men and create demigods, upon the earth spread out. I bring up all of this in the context is because, again, when you look at Ethiopia, you're going to not realize that His Majesty, from he was a child, was educated in Ge'ez. Ge'ez don't have any secular texts. When you're reading Ge'ez, he's reading these ancient scrolls, and His Majesty was voracious in terms of his acquisition. This is the Christ consciousness now we're talking about. Any information was consumed. When he went to live in the palace with Menelik, I talk about this in Lion Voice that we just did on Emperor Menelik. At the age of 13, he requested to be in the court with Menelik. He spent 8 months, according to the autobiography, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day beside Menelik from morning till night in court, just observing. And the only reason he stopped that is because Emperor Menelik started a school for the children of the nobles, Lijayasu, Rasemuru, all of them. And he started being instructed by foreign instructors, and His Majesty said at the age of 13, I want to join with the other youths. And Menelik said, the only reason I didn't let you know about this was because I you're a governor. And, the way how you're moving, I didn't think you'd be interested in this kind of learning. And he said, no. And he said, well, since you want to learn, go and learn. And he started being instructed with the youth. But it's just to show you the ravenous. So His Majesty would have studied about the angels, the this, the that. He's acquainted with the monastery, not just the Orthodox Church, the Bahatawi. They would have come and give praises. So His Majesty had a network throughout the realm of loyal people who were trained in these ancient faith and doctrine. Remember, he rebuilt the church that housed the Ark of the Covenant in Aksum, the Church of St. Mary. Ethiopia is rumored to have a lot of underground passageways. We see the resistance movements in the Middle East, in Iran and these places using tunnels. And, as Ras Makonnen said, the folklore that he went into the inner sanctum of the church at the Gibi, where they keep the Ark of the Covenant, and went into an underground passage, and that's how he was able to evade. And then from there, he could have went into the network of monasteries. You have monasteries.
Yeah, usually it's a custom for
Go ahead.
kings to renounce. Usually, like, kings renounce the world and go into monasteries. So that's an Ethiopian tradition.
That's a tradition. So and this is, we're getting into the folklore. We can't produce statement, fact, and this and that, but there is folklore that supports everything that we're saying, oral traditions that support this viewpoint. And we just want to bring all of the sides out to the family so that they know that there is a tradition that His Majesty escaped from his captivity, which I've also read that they had to change the guard at the Gibi almost every 3 days because of the power that His Majesty had. People didn't even want to look him in the face. You know what I mean? And the influence. His Majesty could have walked out of that house arrest anytime he wanted to. And again, this is one of the reasons why they keep saying he was senile, because he was just acquiescing to the Derg, when by word sound him could have just block a word and the whole of them wipe out. You know what I mean? But he was just there complying with them, going along. But it's said that now at this moment,
he was doing it for the advantage of the country. That's what he said.
He did not want to plunge the country into civil war. He took a militant stance for peace. Behold the upright and mark the perfect man, because the end of that man is peace. That's in the Psalms. Then you also have that the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from his feet until the coming of Shiloh. Shiloh translates to peace on earth. So to become peace on earth, he would have to make that militant stance for peace, because war begets war. So some world leader somewhere, somehow, they would have to make that stance. And His Majesty, as Kadamawi, being the first, he's the first to usher in this new humanity, this member of a new race that says that war shall no longer be an option for conflict resolution. His Majesty stand, and as Rastafari, we have to represent this, because we see now that they're plunging the world into war. They're going the opposite of what His Majesty say. And we are, as Rastafari, we're supposed to hold the line and remind the people of this militant stand for peace, and that we can build a new world without war. This is our divine destiny. This is how I see it, And I want to make it clear that His Majesty being alive physically, even though I feel His Majesty is still alive physically, because I believe say Enoch and them man, they still a walk. Elijah, certain man, conquer death. I believe that. Yeshua.
Could I interject
Yeah,
and add to it? There's a YouTube documentary about a yogi meeting the emperor in 1983. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I've seen it. And, I don't know. I cannot judge the veracity, but the man is testifying. And my faith is not contingent on him being alive or being or physically, because again, His Majesty live in the hearts of millions. You know what I mean? So to I that already show what that spirit represents in the earth. But I do believe that there are mysteries within the earth. I do believe that there are fallen angels within the earth, certain angelic beings and different things. And I believe that His Majesty, although fully human, was also fully divine, which is the essence of the monotheistic Orthodox faith, the fulfillment of the orthodoxy of the faith. That's how I see it. How do I see them see it? Drop some comments. Let me know how do I them see it. If you feel Haile Selassie I live, put a 1 in the chat. If you feel that he dropped his physical flesh, put a 2. If you don't know, put a 3. Let me see what the ones them say about this, because this is a reasoning, you know what I mean? And we built this platform so that we could have these reasonings that we're not going to have it on another platform, but when we have our own platform, we can take 2 hours and go through some photograph and talk about the Derg and these things. 1. So if you believe he still live, put a 1 in the chat. You know what I mean? If you feel he drop his flesh and live in the irie, put a 2. If you believe that he is, you don't know, just put a 3. Or either way, put a 3. Let's. I want to see what the family, how the family feel.
Let me interject and give my view on that.
Yes, give your view, King.
Okay. My heart. You see, this is prophetic. We gotta pull this computer in from the rain a little.
Yeah, I saw some lightning flash earlier. When
thunder. As I about to speak about my view. Yeah.
Yeah, when I said earlier about the inner sanctum of the church, a lightning flash behind the eye, I really thought that was a mystic occurrence, but we see it on the replay.
We kind of outdoors. Bear with us, audience. We outdoors, so the lightning and thunder is the ambience, which is the law of vibration, which is the emperor speaking through the law of vibration. For me, logically, he's alive, because for a person die, you got corpse and you bury them. In this case, there's nothing like that. His spirit is venerated across the globe. So that's evidence that his vibration is still oscillating. So for me to conform his physical body, we could get answers from a person who was involved in his disappearance. That person is Mengistu. He lives in Zimbabwe. The movie Grandpa Was an Emperor, it tried to address that issue where the princess called to speak with Mengistu to answer all these questions. He never answered. So I bring it to the public awareness that there's somebody with who currently lives in Zimbabwe. His name is Mengistu and protected by the Zimbabwean government. So there's a part of the puzzle that in fitting the puzzle here. Eh?
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
he's a war criminal. We wanted for genocide in Ethiopia. They extradite Charles Taylor. So why they can't extradite him? He suffered the family, the royal family. They are in prison. They got sick from the food and the conditions that they were living in, right? And they were charged without. They were held without a charge. That's international crime. So it's my
Yes, lightning and thunder family. In Old York where the brethren is. Saw the lightning flash earlier. While we wait for the Wi-Fi to come forward, a Kebulon Empress sound says militant stands for peace. How does the aforementioned applies now in terms of relationships and unity? When I say militant stands for peace, I mean that war should always be the last solution, and all of the things that we represent as Rastafari family today, we should be dealing with alternate dispute resolution, meaning we should all be masters of mediation. There's all kind of different ways to resolve conflict without resorting to physical violence, because physical violence begets violence, and that is the thing. Once you thump down a man always go want to thump you down. Now that doesn't mean that we shouldn't train. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. That is ancient wisdom. So you want to be firm and ready. But in terms of, you see what's happening now, the militarization of creation, people spending building militias. I don't feel that that's our role as Rastafari. I feel our role is to build the alternative to Babylon, to build this new reality. How can we scale off the grid? Because, you can see in the wars that are being fought today, the power grids are being targeted. So you cannot always depend on state entities so how can we build rural communities that can survive even if Babylon collapse? Because that's what it's looking like. It's looking like this thing is headed for collapse. But I feel His Majesty has been preparing I to take that stance for peace, because most of the earth want peace. It's a minority that's pushing for war. But if there's no one living that peace, which Haile Selassie had to come and live that peace during this time of his reign, then how can the world cleave to anything when all of the world leaders have bought into this endless war model? The military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned about, and Eisenhower is the first American president that hosted His Majesty, and His Majesty came because of his respect for Eisenhower. And I believe that that's why Eisenhower made that speech, and made that because he reasoned with the king and realized that even his brethren and sistren in the military had been co-opted. And we can talk about who is behind the scenes pulling the strings. Some people would say fallen angels, some people would say this, some people would say that. We don't get into that part. All we want to know is that as Rastafari, we have work to do, and our work is to build the alternative to Babylon. All right, I'm gonna go forward here. Big up Diane Rodney. Bless up the Lion's Voice. Good lesson. Gasnell Blair, big up yourself, Lion Voice. I believe in theocracy, and theocracy is the Most High at the reigns. Azaria Selassie says one. And if you're watching, we have 35 of us. If you believe Haile Selassie lived physically, put a one in the chat. If you believe that he dropped flesh but lived spiritually, put a two. If you don't know or you don't have an opinion, put three. And if you believe that he reigned, we'll just stop with the three. But I just interested in how the family feel. Our family from Reunion Island. Merci, Ras Makonnen, for this excellent presentation. This man not dead, him still a trod the hurt. He has risen once and for all. One. Big up from Reunion Island, Lion Pride and Patreon. Check in. We are global family. Me love it, you know. When the Lion Pride and Patreon check in. Joan says one, he lives. Diane Rodney said one, Ja live. Gasnell Blair, Arts and all of the thing. Freeway Dread, Lion Pride and Patreon are check in. One, in the heart of all flesh, the Emperor is still the Emperor. Big up yourself. Freeway Dread all the time. One Thunder. Big up. Soka David, praises to His Imperial Majesty, Haile Selassie I the First. We have Gasnell Blair, Bill Zion. That is it, King. That is the mission. King Kush, one. So everyone, we have universal. You know what I mean? People think that His Majesty live in the flesh. Lion Voice, Vatican system is coming to an end. Yes, we are witnessing the collapse of Babylon. And this is why we're touching these topics, because His Majesty has charged us with a mission, and He has charged us with a operating procedure in terms of how He dealt with these challenges. And because of His challenge, again, they can't say that He went out like Gaddafi. They can't say He went out with bloodthirst and all of these things. All they can say is He lost His mind because He refused to create civil war on His people. I'll always say, Makonnen, we're going to seal up shortly. We're getting up to the 2-hour mark, but I want to give the eye a chance to just give some final remarks and bless up the people.
Okay, in my final remarks, Rastafari as a nation or a people or as a community, we have made great strides. But one of the issues that we have to address is personality cult. We have to shift from personalities to institutions.
Speaking
So my advice going forward is creating the collective so that we could transform with present like how we going forward. We have to change. We have to leave narrow national ideological thinking, and put unity in front and the future, because the Emperor is the future. We equipped with his knowledge. So my message to all is to keep the pace and maintain your sovereignty, because it's a rich heritage which was perpetuated or handed down to us. So we have the responsibility of governing it now. and give thanks for your platform, which is a forum for discussion. Normally, this is current attack, but with technology, we be able to become infocentric. Be able to educate people. So I want to say that I want to continue to bear true allegiance to His Imperial Majesty and His heirs and successors.
Aye.
I'm not thinking anymore.
Bring up that picture of His Majesty, the last picture. Let's bring it up on the screen as we come into the seal. Bring up that picture.
We had some technical difficulties because the rain came, so we had to change the angle of how we were speaking.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the item can see again the dignity. His Majesty said when he went in exile in the UK that he would never again go into exile, and so said, so done, true to his word. Again, he could have left the country. He could have chose violent suppression. His Majesty gave what they asked for. Both the students and the military, he did the best that he could to meet their demands and their challenges, because he said that there's another quote where he said that if they had only looked at our plans, they would have realized that we had the same intention. He was trying to do land reform, and he kept getting blocked because of the Rases, who were now part of the upper house. The Senate kept blocking this legislation because they were trying to keep their whatever little power and wealth and things that they had. So we have to do the study, and there's a lot of propaganda against the king, and a lot of people want to smear him. And I tell the global family to be of good courage and do your research, because when you look deep, you will find the king is blameless. The Christ consciousness seeks only to work, to accumulate knowledge, to uplift. That is the divinity that lives within all of us. And His Majesty is the highest manifestation of that we've seen on earth. So we give thanks. Big up yourself, Island Culture, as well, for the technical assistance. We're going to have the eye on here shortly. If there are any final sounds, we would love to get them. Sukar, David, I don't know. Can you let us know where you're watching from? He said His Majesty said avoiding politics is like His Majesty said avoiding politics is like avoiding nuclear fallout. Politics affects everyone whether we like it or not, so we should participate in politics. Serious sound. And again, I just say that we should be non-aligned and not owning allegiance to a political party. But, even if we're going to decide to utilize our vote as a bloc, we should be independent and going with the policies that align with I culture and our interests. I don't think we need to be apolitical, but we need to be non-aligned. And this is why we say Rastafari independent, non-aligned media. And as we seal up, we want to expand the Patreon. I had aimed to get 100 people in the Patreon by September 11th. Right now, it's looking like H.I.M is going to fail that goal for the second year in a row. I tried to take it down from 1,000, but don't make it look so terrible. At least let us get 50 of I. We're growing rapidly on the channel. If you can do $5 a month, do $5 a month, and let us build this independent platform so we can go even more in depth. We can have more production value. We can talk about the things that we want to talk about. We want to build documentaries. We want to do animation. We want to do all these things, but it costs. How much is Rastafari media and content creation worth to the item? I want the item asked the item self if it's worth $5 a month, if it's worth $10 to invest, so that our youths have something to see, have someone who's producing content for us. No one is coming to save us. How much is it worth to support us? And I want to also big up all of the other content creators, Ija Stars. I want to big up Honorable Priest Isaac and the Tiger's Nest. I want to big up ZG Chapel, Kip Ezekiel out of Ethiopia. So many more independent Rastafari media. The Patreon link is patreon.com/thechazmatchquasi. If you look in any of the videos, you'll see the link there. But it's just Patreon, the Chazmatchquasi, or you can just go on Patreon, search the Chazmatchquasi, and it will come up. And yeah, man, join. We have exclusive content on the Patreon as well that is only available on the Patreon. See the link, big up the production team. We have exclusive content. We're about to upload an exclusive interview with Honorable Priest Isaac of the Tiger's Nest that will only be available on the Patreon. We have all of the Chazmatchquasi music. I just uploaded a performance I did at Watermelon Day. A little clip is on my YouTube channel, but the full performance is on the Patreon. So all of my artist works, I upload the songs and the music that you hear. It's on the Patreon. You can access it there. It's a new model. It's called direct to consumer, and that is, whether it's Patreon, whether it's Wix, whether it's Squarespace, we advise any content creators to have their own ecosystem where their support base can support them economically, because if you don't do that, then you rely on big sponsors and you don't really become independent, because if the big sponsor don't write the check, then you can do what you want to do. But if your funding comes from your audience, then that is the freest that you can be. So family, we're asking, if you love this content, you want to see more like this, you want to see more scholars, more grassroots come on with these type of presentations, support $5, $10, $25. Join the Lion Pride on Patreon. Big up the over 700 new subscribers we got in the last 28 days. The Lion Pride is growing. We're over 3,500 subscribers now. We're racing toward 5,000 subscribers. So big up everyone who is new. Again, I still haven't seen a comment from Kenya. I want to hear from my Nairobi family. The analytics are telling me that Kenya is the #1 demographic, and I'm not seeing any comments from my Kenya family. This name engagement family. So if you're from Nairobi and the first comment, you're guaranteed to get comment of the strong. If you comment from Kenya, my Nairobi family, please, Mombasa family, please comment. Let me hear from the item. So Makonnen, again, just any final sound, and then we're gonna seal up. We're at the 2-hour mark. Any final sound, King?
Well, my final song is that I should continue to elevate myself in the name of the Emperor Haile Selassie I, because our work is of purpose, so we must continue in these endeavors.
So you've heard it. We went through the rise of the Derg. We gave our theories of whether the king is living. We had 100% audience saying that Haile Selassie lived physical. That H.I.M feels so mighty to know. And there are millions of us around the world. They cannot stop this sweeping tide, family. Why? Because the time has come for the lions to tell our own story. And this is the lion's voice. Ilai.
Selassie I for us.
This is Michael Shemai representing. I will say, hear the lion voice, saying it is time for the lions and the lionesses to tell their own story. King David killed Goliath with a stone, we original dread.
The fittest of the fittest shall survive. My people, open your eyes. Wake up. Blessed love, this is Queen Omega representing for all lions and lionesses. With the lion's voice, we come to tell our story. Ras Tafari, live it. Hey, the lion's voice. Ras Tafari.
Yeah, man. Greetings, Ras Tafari, Haile Emperor Haile Selassie I, the first, perfect balance Empress Menin. This is first man for Ras Tafari indigenous village, recognizing, accepting, promoting lion voice. Yes, the voice of Rastafari, speaking about Rastafari, educating Rastafari, preserving, protecting Rastafari. Give thanks.
Aye, Rastafari, mighty.
Amina, the time has come for the lioness to tell our own story. No surrender, no retreat, we are Jaja soldier. Rougher than the streets, tougher than a boulder. Bigging up Lamb's voice. Now put it, I Jollifer said that.
Yeah, David Dread of Steel Pulse, and I'm saying hail to Lion Voice because it's time that the lion have its voice, have its own story. Says I'm stepping out here, hear me now. Yeah, the lion's voice. Raw.
Lion voice.